Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live presentation titled OPC to MQTT. My name is Randy, and I am the host for today's webinar. In fact, the presenter. Also, the organizers will pass your questions to me, and I will include them in the webinar as we move along. So if I don't get to your question during the presentation itself, I will answer it at the end. So let's get going. Again, today's webinar is about OPC to MQTT. We're going to talk about the actual problem itself that we have in automation and what we're trying to do with OPC and MQTT. We'll talk about the solution. We'll talk about MQTT and very specifically SparkplugB. We'll talk about publishing, the publisher, subscriber. We'll talk about brokers, store and forward, bulk item configuration, troubleshooting, IoT messages, and in the end, I will let you know how to get this webinar recording and software download. Spoiler alert, we are going to send you this webinar recording. So you'll actually get this webinar recording so you don't have to worry about it. So let's talk about Internet of Things, IoT, using OPC and MQTT with SparkplugB. Now, what is MQTT? MQTT is a very low bandwidth protocol that is what is known as edge-driven. And by edge-driven, what it means is that the equipment at the edge, for example, your SCADA devices, your RTUs, whatever device you have, is actually initiating communication to send data to a broker, to the central location. We'll talk about a broker in a little bit, but this is edge-driven, unlike OPC, which is controlled by the client. The client is initiating communication with the server. In this case, a publisher is going out from the edge and sending out its requests. That's quite important, as we'll see later on. Also, there is SparkplugB. In automation, talking about MQTT without SparkplugB makes it rather, in my opinion, rather irrelevant. MQTT is a standard, but MQTT does not define data types, doesn't have a data structure, and that's what SparkplugB does. So SparkplugB, as far as automation is concerned, is extremely important for MQTT. So much so that, again, in my opinion, not having SparkplugB with MQTT makes MQTT rather irrelevant for automation. And sure enough, when we see automation and MQTT, we see a lot of SparkplugB. Now, it is SparkplugB, MQTT really make it easy to send OPC, DA, and UA data to the internet. It also makes it very easy to receive messages from remote devices to our OPC products. And again, that's what we'll see here. So the question is, how do we get OPC to, or I should say controllers to MQTT? So let me show you 3 slides here showing some very, very common scenarios. Number one is maybe we're doing SCADA with telemetry. We might have an RTU, a remote device, and maybe it's going over radio as an example. What it would do is send data to an MQTT broker. So what's happening here is that it sends data via MQTT. That broker would send it to another application, again, via MQTT, and you'd send it to your control system, PLC or DCS, via OPC. Now remember, this communication here is client-server. So with OPC, we're talking about client-server. The OPC server might be on the PLC, maybe it's on a PC somewhere, but we got a client connecting to a server. With MQTT, we have a broker. And with the broker, the RTU typically publishes the data, sends it to the broker. So it pushes the data to the broker. Whenever there's a change here, the data is pushed to the broker. Separately, we have another application here that subscribes. It pulls the data from the broker. So we have a push and then a pull mechanism. What's special about that is that in both cases, both the push, so the push, for example, is generated by this device. A pull is generated by this application over here. So it's the communication in this case, as you see here, is edge driven. It's this guy here is at the edge and it sends the data to the broker. That's a very common case that we have with MQTT and OPC. Again, in this case, the RTU publishes, whereas this application over here subscribes. It's very similar, but there are differences with client server. Now, we can cross network barriers with MQTT. For example, we have a control system that might send data to a broker. Again, this might be via OPC, and we have a converter over here. So this communication here is OPC. This, of course, is MQTT. That makes this guy a publisher. So this time it's a publisher, not a subscriber, but a publisher. Somewhere out on the internet or wherever you have some low bandwidth, we might have a subscriber. So this guy is a subscriber. So it subscribes to MQTT data, and that is exactly what we will see. Brad, to your question, a push is typically done by exception. So whenever there is an exception, whenever there's data change, we have a push. Makes it very, very efficient. Another very common way people use MQTT, they have a control system. They might send it out via the data via OPC, and we send the data out to Microsoft Azure or to Amazon AWS Greengrass, for example, using MQTT. So these are very, very common. In this case, you just pay a bucket of cash to Azure or to Amazon, and they hold your data and they enable you to do your data analysis directly from the web if that's what you need. But MQTT is a nice protocol to send out the data. So we'll take a look at what's happening here. Now, again, another view of what's going on here. We've got OPC on this side connecting to a control system. Typically, this occurs in high bandwidth locations. So you might have this in a plant, a factory, where we've got LAN communication. So right here, you typically have LAN. That would go over to a broker. So if you want to send the data out, or very, very separately, this might be a low bandwidth connection. You might capture the information and then send it out to Microsoft SQL Server or some kind of a database, Excel, or do some reporting. So what are we talking about here? Number one, support for OPC, whether it's OPC Classic or OPC DA, UA, or MQTT. OPC Classic or OPC DA or UA. For MQTT support, again, very, very important. SparkplugB. Without SparkplugB, you don't really have much with MQTT. It's just a bunch of data and there's no structure to it. Sending out data to Microsoft Azure or Amazon AWS Greengrass. As far as communication support, we're talking about all the security profiles for MQTT, which is secure. It's got security built in, or OPC Classic security or OPC UA with security. You can have local and remote OPC servers, or of course, local or remote MQTT brokers, communication by DCOM, TCP/IP, HTTP, or HTTPS. And again, of course, what you want is anytime you have any of these applications in automation, we want them to run as services. It's very, very important that they run as services. So these are the typical requirements. So let me just show you the architecture of what's happening here. So here we're looking at OPC Expert as an example. I'll show you what's inside this particular application. So what we're seeing here is inside OPC Expert. So when you download OPC Expert, here's what you actually get. Well, number one, which most of you already know, there's OPC clients. So we've got OPC DA or OPC UA, historical access, alarms, events, and so on. So OPC Classic and OPC UA clients. That goes into an intelligent engine. Now, from there, you can send it out to be published via MQTT. Now, since we're specifically talking about MQTT here, you can also have a broker or a subscriber. So you can have an MQTT subscriber and a broker going into this intelligent engine, and you can use REST API. You can send that out to Excel. You can export the information for example, in a CSV. As an example, that's right here, not just real-time Excel, but into a CSV if that's what you want. Or you can send out the data to SQL, whether it's Microsoft SQL Server, MySQL, SQLite, MongoDB, or just have XML or CSV files. You can do that. And then send that data out via REST API, which is a server. Again, OPC UA, OPC DA, or you can send it out real-time data into Excel. So the whole point here is that all of this comes inside OPC Expert, and these are actually modules inside OPC Expert. So you can very easily convert from MQTT to OPC, from OPC DA to MQTT. You can send that out to a publisher. So you can go OPC UA to a broker. You can very, very easily start to manipulate the data. And of course, if you're going over the web and you need HTTP, you can actually use REST API. So pretty cool stuff. This is all inside OPC Expert, and you can actually try this, and you can diagnose your existing MQTT or OPC connections. I'll show you what happens here. So in this case, what we're talking about is these particular modules. That's what we'll talk about here. The MQTT subscriber, the broker, we'll talk about OPC DA and UA, and the MQTT publisher. And again, remember, you can send data from MQTT and to an OPC server via this OPC client or this client, where you can subscribe to data, send it to another broker, or you can publish it somewhere else. So all of this is possible. These types of conversions are possible with OPC Expert. So we'll take a look at an example here, and I'll show you this in practice. So we'll have a little demo here where we're going to do this very thing. So here's what we're going to do. Let me get over here. So I have two computers here. So I've got two computers here. There's OPC 01. There is OPC 02. We'll actually send out data to the internet in one case, and we'll send data inside here. And folks, I see you've asked quite a few questions. Let me just get to a couple of these things. Mauricio, you notice that there is MQTT 3.1.1 or MQTT 5. I guess that depends mostly on what product you're using, what they support. Brad, again, push is by exception. Whenever we push, it is by exception. So we'll take a look at that. So here we have a computer called OPC 01. There it is. Now at the end of this, I'll just make it bigger. At the end of this, I'll give you a link to be able to download the software so you can actually download it yourself. So when you download OPC Expert, you can just run it. It does not make any changes to Windows registry. And away we go here. So what we'll have here is OPC Expert. There we go. So as you can see, it started here. What I'll do first of all, just to give you an idea, is I will send my data out to the internet. Now, if you have your own MQTT subscriber, you'll actually be able to see this data right now. So what I'll do is I'll expand this computer right here, and I can see I've got several OPC servers here. And let me open this up. So here we go. I'm connecting via OPC. I will, let me go in here as well. Let me grab some data. Okay, so there we go. We've got some data from one OPC server, and I got it from two branches. Now I'm not subscribing to many items just so it's easier to tell what's going on. So here we go. Go in here. And I'll go in here. This is a server from, you can see we got servers here from Iconics. and also from Kepware. All right, so here what I'm getting is some data, and I'm collecting that every 5 seconds. Now, the reason I'm doing it every 5 seconds is because I'm going to be sending this to Mosquito over the internet, and it does not respond too fast. But of course, we can get this data actually much faster. So I can, for example, change the update rate, and I can go into, let's say, let me take it every half a second. So I'll go every 500 milliseconds. So of course, you can do that, and you can get this data much faster. You can see here 500 milliseconds, and we get a whole bunch of different data types. But in this case, what I'm going to do, again, because I'm sending it to Mosquito, I'll go with 5 seconds, so it's not too fast. But of course, this is all governed by OPC. Sorry, not OPC. It's governed by the speed of your of what your network will be able to take. So here we go. So we're getting data here every 5 minutes. Okay. Now let me just these servers here. I should have actually done this before. So I'll just kill them just that they just so we reset them. So here we go. I don't want these things to go into demo mode on me. So there we go. So we lost the connection, obviously, because I killed the OPC servers. And what's kind of cool here is you can see OPC Expert actually diagnoses the reason why you lost your connection. If you take a look at this here, so it lost the connection. This is likely caused because the OPC server was suddenly terminated. So, you know, it enables you to really easily troubleshoot your OPC connections, diagnose what's wrong. So we're getting some data here. Now watch. I'll take this data right here, and I will right-click, archive, create a new archive. Now, as you can see, I can send this data to Amazon, to AWS. I can send it to Azure, Microsoft SQL Server, MongoDB, or in this case, I'll send it to an MQTT broker. So I'll click Next. And for my computer, I'm going to take test.mosquito.org. We've got that in there already for you since this is available on the internet. And we'll send this out to the internet using SparkplugB. So I'm going to connect to Mosquito with SparkplugB. And I'll click, let me test it. Very important. This is one of the most important things. I can do a test connection, and I can see that this is okay. So if I didn't have a network connection or there's something wrong with the broker, it would actually tell me, and would even tell me the reason. And I can also do a test publish from here. Since things are working, I'll click OK. And now I'll start my session. So what that means is I'm going to start publishing my data to Mosquito. And again, if you're connected to Mosquito right now, you'll be able to take a look at this. So here, OPC Expert recognized, aha, we've got test.mosquito.org. That's why it was added right here. And there's the MQTT broker on port 1883, which is a standard port. So if I open up test.mosquito.org, and keep in mind, this is actually real-time data. I mean, real data that's actually coming from the internet, from MQTT. And I can open this up. So here we go. So all of this data is actually being sent right now. And this isn't necessarily by me. This is by other people. If we go and we look in here, you'll see data other people are sending. Specifically, I'm on computer OPC01. That's me right here. And you can see that I'm sending data. There's factory. There's my OPC TI. And I can see this data right here. Now, I should have really, right now I'm sending this data, as I said, with to the internet. It's not very interesting if I just look at it here. I can actually look at it on this computer. So what I'll do, so I'll make this a little bit smaller. You can still see the green check marks. So you know communication is actually working okay. I'll go over to this computer. Now, this is a completely separate computer. So I'll start up OPC Expert here, and I will connect separately to Mosquito. Now again, this computer over here, this is publishing data to the internet. This computer will be subscribing. So I'll add a computer and I'll go to test.mosquito.org. There we go. I'm browsing test.mosquito.org. This computer has got no clue that there was something else. It automatically found the broker, and you can see it found the broker on 2 different ports on test.mosquito.org, and you can use OPC Expert to test your brokers. So here we go. You can see what's inside it. It automatically browses. It automatically looks, and sure enough, there's OPC 01. There is factory, OPC TI, and sure enough, we can get that data. Here we go. So you can see exactly the same data, and it's actually coming to us. There we go. So we can see the data is coming in. So we can actually see the data changing. So this data is changing every 5 seconds. And again, if you are actually on the internet right now, if you're using OPC Expert or MQTT Explorer or Ignition, whatever it is you're using, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter. You can you can get to this now. Ernest, you're asking me to expand the item ID column. There we go. You can see the item ID. You can actually see the item ID as it is coming from MQTT. So you can actually see where this is coming from. So there you go. There you go, Ernest. I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Just so you guys can see the data is coming along. You can see the quality. You can see, of course, the data strings and the data types. And all of this is coming from SparkplugB. So the reason OPC Expert can actually tell what the data types are is because of SparkplugB. If it were just MQTT, you wouldn't know what the data types are. But if you connect over to Mosquito right now, you'll be able to see the data exactly this way with these data types. So they actually come through. Now, this is one example of, once again, this is a publisher. Right here, we have a publisher sending out to the internet. What we have here is a subscriber receiving data from the internet. So whenever there's a change, the publisher actually sends data to the internet, and then the broker lets the subscriber know, hey, look, there is a change. Okay. This is just one example. In this case, we're sending out to the internet. Now, let me do it internally, because remember, as I said, OPC Expert comes with, I'll go File, New. There we go. We'll go over here. We'll go File, New. All right. So now, I'll just make this a little bit smaller, just so it is more obvious that it's out of the way. Okay, so from here, let's go take a look. So I'll go, let me close this and delete. So I'm no longer publishing. And again, I'm just keeping this simple, no longer publishing to the internet. Well, now what I want to do is to publish to my own broker. So I'll create my own broker. I'll go Tools, Options, and again, this comes within OPC Expert. And here, what we see is there's OPC MQTT Broker, and I'll enable it, and I will even run it as a Windows service right here. So I'll apply. I guess I don't need to click apply. I can just click OK. Ooh, darn. I should point this out. Let's see if we saw it in time. Okay, so there is OPC Expert UA Broker. You can see it's running as a service under the system account. So if I go here, go to services, there's OPC MQTT Broker. It's actually a service. So it's a service. There it is. It's running. So there's OPC Expert. That's the GUI over here. And there is MQTT Broker right here. this OPC Expert System Tray, that's this guy right here. Just makes it a little bit easier to control. But the GUI itself is right over here, and the MQTT broker is running as a Windows service, which means it doesn't need OPC Expert. It can just run there all the time if you have other applications connected. So let's see what's going on. So now when I browse this computer, here we go. I'm going to find my OPC service, but I should also find my MQTT broker. And there it is. It found it. It's on port 1883. And I have another one on 8883 if you want some security. All right. So now, once again, I'll do this with the keyboard because it's a little bit faster. All right. So I can get some data. And this time I'll go to random just so you see that it's different. I'll go to my simulator, get some data over here. Get some data here. Okay. So there we go. And I'll select all of my data right here, right click, archive, create new archive. Again, we're going to MQTT broker. Next. In this case, we're not going to test.mosquito.org. Rather, we're going to go to OPC01. So locally, I have a broker. I'm going to send it right here. Let me test the connection, publish, aha, connection was accepted and authorized. Wonderful, so I know it's working. I can do a test publish as well, and I'll click OK. So right now, and I'll click start. So right now, what we see is that all of the data is being sent to my broker. So as you can see here, my data is being sent to my broker over here. So you can see this data is changing. Now, how do you really know that this is being sent to the broker? Well, make this smaller. We go over here. So this is a different computer. So what I'll do, remember I've got my entire network here. I will go over here, add computer. So I'll go to OPC01. Right now, by the way, I am on OPC02. You see it here. You see it in remote desktop. So when I open up OPC01, okay, I found my OPC service. Typically, you wouldn't have that because you're being blocked by firewalls or they're just not available. But on port 1883 or 8883, there we go, we see MQTT broker. Now remember, it's on this computer right here. So when I open it up, here we go. We see again SparkplugB, OPC01, and I can see my simulator and my kepware. There we go, and I can subscribe to everything. Just drag it, drop it, and now I'm getting my data once again. Here comes my data, and it should be changing every so often. There it goes. So it's changing here. So you can see we already got some updates. There we go. So data is now changing. So it's kind of cool. Inside my own organization, I can get MQTT, and I can get, I have a broker, I've got a subscriber and a publisher. Once again, this guy is a subscriber. This guy over here, this is a publisher. It's publishing to the broker right here. So it's publishing to the broker, and this guy is subscribing to the broker. Now, one of the other cases that we have is that, for example, you might want to send data out to the internet. Remember, your control system is on the control network. So it might be on the operations network, it might be on the control network, and I hope that you do not have an internet connection directly to your operations network, much less to the control network. I hope you don't have it, which means the only way we can get out to the internet is to make several hops. Well, in this case, OPC Expert, as I said, has brokers, but you can actually have a broker-to-broker communication. What that means is one broker sends data to the next broker, which sends data to the next broker, which sends data to the next broker. So you can have this daisy chain and on out to the internet or to whatever whatever computers you want. Now, to illustrate this, again, I'm going to go File, New. Remember, over here in this case, I was actually connecting directly to the broker on this computer right over here. What I'll do now, go File, New, right? So I'm no longer going to connect to OPC 01. I'll connect to a local broker. So on OPC 02, what I will do is go to Tools, Options, and once again, I will set up a broker on this PC. So here we go. So I'll set up the broker to run as a Windows service. Oh, and in this case, I'll go to Task Manager. Hopefully you can see, no, I missed it again. But there is the broker right here. So that's the broker. Okay, there's the broker. Once again, I will open this, I will open it up. Now remember, there's OPC 01, there's test.mosquito.org that we connected to before, but in this case, I'm going to be connected to a local broker. Now, I didn't do anything. There is nothing in this broker. Nobody is publishing to it, so what's in this broker is empty, right? There is nothing in this broker. If I go right-click, rebrowse, there is nothing there. So you can see it's attempting to browse. It's telling you exactly what it's doing, but we see nothing there. Why? Because nobody is publishing. This is a broker on OPC 02. So here's what I'm going to do. Remember, this on this computer right here, whoop, there we go, OPC 02. Okay, so remember on OPC 02, there's a broker, but nobody's publishing to it. This guy over here, as you can see, is publishing to OPC 01. Well, what I'll do now is I will tell this broker to actually send data to this broker. So to do that, I just go to Tools, Options, and I'll go to my broker and I'll configure it right here. Now here I configure my broker. You can see which ports are available. You can take different ports, of course. You can play around with the options. But here we've got a source broker or a destination broker. What that means is this broker right here can actually grab information from another broker. So for example, if I have a broker somewhere else, I can get that information right in this broker, make it available to this broker. In other words, it's going to subscribe to another broker and grab data. Or I can push it to another destination broker. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll add OPC 02. So again, let me just test to make sure the connection is working. Yeah, connection accept and authorized. Terrific. Click OK. And again, this is the reason that you can actually use OPC Expert to test your MQTT brokers, your publishers, your subscribers. We'll apply this, okay, and we'll close. So what's happening now is that this broker, so this broker right here is actually pushing data, and it's resetting here. That's why you see that we lost our connection. So this broker is actually going to send data to the broker on this computer. What that means, once again, really quite important here, is OPC Expert itself is reading data from an OPC server, two OPC servers actually. It's then sending data to a broker on this PC. Separately, so the broker on this PC is this one right here. Separately, this broker is actually sending information to the broker on this computer right here on OPC 02. In other words, it's got nothing to do with your applications. And folks, I'll finish this right away, and then we can get to your questions. I see questions are piling up here. So now it's being published to this broker right here. Again, this broker is right here. It's running as a service. So if I right-click and rebrowse, now what I should be able to see is data that's coming in. And it's actually coming in from the other broker. So I can actually, just for the sake of argument, I could have, there we go. So here we go. And I should be able to get data. And sure enough, there you can see me getting data. And I'm getting data from my broker. So I've got broker to broker communication being done right here. So for example, if you want to send data to Amazon or to Microsoft, you can gather information inside your factory, send it from one broker to another, to another, to another, until you get out to the internet. From there, OPC Expert can push it out to AWS or to Azure or to whatever brokers you have. Maybe you're using another company whether it's Hive or whatever it is you have that's going to be capturing your information. So there you go. We've done in the beginning we had OPC Expert capturing information from OPC servers, sending it out to Mosquito. Then we had OPC Expert sending it out to a local broker and a remote broker picking it up. And now we have broker to broker communication. And again, you can download this and try this all out yourself and see how it works. I should point out everything is bi-directional too. Okay, so once again, we saw the subscription and we saw the publishing, the pushing, and we saw the pulling with the subscription. Let me just finish off here, folks, and then I'll finish with the forum part. Then I'll get to the inform part with your questions. So to get automated troubleshooting, you can download OPC Rescue. OPC Rescue does a tremendous amount of troubleshooting with OPC Classic, or you can get OPC Expert, which does both OPC Classic and OPC UA. Of course, it'll help you out with your DCOM hardening. Those of you that are still struggling with it, you can view and subscribe to OPC data, OPC UA, DA, and also MQTT data, where there's a publisher, a subscriber, and a broker. And you can really use OPC Expert to do your troubleshooting, especially if you're doing MQTT. It will connect to remote brokers, and you can also have a broker in there that you can publish to with your publishers or get data from your subscribers. You can diagnose your connections, monitor your network connections, and of course monitor remote OPC and MQTT servers. So a lot of diagnosis in OPC Expert. Again, in OPC Expert, you can trend, you can bridge, you can tunnel. So you can do all of these things right here. Support for a whole bunch of OPC, MQTT. In this specific presentation, we talked about OPC and MQTT, but there's a whole lot more. By the way, in the next webinar, we'll talk about Excel connectivity. We'll have another webinar on REST API, which is getting your data via REST API, which means that you can be on other operating systems quite easily and capture information from OPC directly with REST API. Now, hands-on learning, where do you get that? You can earn your certified OPC designation. You can come to one of our workshops where you can configure OPC via DCOM or OPC UA. You can troubleshoot OPC systems, learn how to properly secure your systems with firewalls, with the proper user accounts, with access control lists, with certificates, with usernames and passwords, with OPC UA, and so on. And you can learn OPC best practices. Use 2 computers for this. So you actually get 2 computers that you use and you control. You configure them yourself and you troubleshoot them yourself. And as those of you who have been in our classes, when everything is working, we mess it up for you. So you have to troubleshoot it. It's a very, very practical hands-on class. These workshops are remote, which means there is no travel. They're interactive. So it's a live instructor. Everything is live and it's immediate. So live instructor, and it's a live remote class. These are public classes, which means there are other people that you learn with, which is really very important because you get ideas from other people from other industries. Although we do hold private training as well. So if you have enough people, let's go do a private class just for your company. If you want to look at specific dates, have a look at opcti.com. Last slide here, then we'll get to your questions. We're going to send you an email after this webinar. So you'll get this email, should be tomorrow. You're going to get a link to this webinar recording. You'll get a link to download OPC Expert. You'll get short videos showing you MQTT examples, so how to get to MQTT. You'll learn how to publish and subscribe. So you'll see in that video, you can actually do it yourself. You can download OPC Expert. You can actually try it yourself. You can troubleshoot and diagnose your own broker if that's what you're connecting to. You can go to opcexpert.com/MQTT if you want to do this right now. And you can actually get the download and have a look at the videos right now. You'll also get an invitation to our next webinar, which is in April, and it's titled OPC to Excel, where we show how to get real-time and historical data into Excel. So real-time data from control systems to Excel. You can do your calculations, you can view your real-time data, but also you can get historical data from historians. So whether using OPC HTA or OPC UAHA, you can get them both into Excel. You'll also learn how to create your own historian and to get support for OPC UAHA. Of course, you can create automated reports. All right, everybody. This is the end of the formal part of the webinar. I'll just say a few more words for those who need to leave now, and then I will return to answer your questions. Look, I hope you found this webinar valuable. Please come back to our website and have a look at other webinars at opcti.com. Again, we will send you that email, and it will contain all this information. I will also personally send you a reply to anybody that asks questions here. I'll send you a reply. I'll spend a little bit more time here. I'll answer your specific questions, and we'll get to them now. So those of you that have to leave, thanks very much for joining. Those of you that ask questions, let me get to them. So here we go. Okay. Marcio, what is the relationship between SparkplugB versions? Sparkplug publish and subscribe A and B. SparkplugB is the most is the more common one. Just like version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Sparkplug A and B, they define things more. The typical one now is SparkplugB. Bartos, why do I need an OPC to get data from a controller? Why not go straight to MQTT without OPC? Excellent, Bartos. So Bartos is asking, well, how come I need OPC anyway? Why don't I just go there with MQTT? Well, it's a good question. Look, if your controller supports MQTT, then get the data with MQTT. If it supports OPC, get the data with OPC. You know, let's look at it this way. What's better, MQTT or OPC? What's our answer? Our answer is it doesn't matter. I mean, from an engineering, a design perspective, everybody has their own thoughts, and I can lend you mine. But that's not the question here. The question is, if it has OPC, go get it with OPC. If it's got MQTT, go get it with MQTT. If you have both, make your decision. OPC Expert doesn't care, it supports both. So you don't have to make that decision. Brad, how can I be assured that a publication push from an RTU has been received by those intended to receive it? Very important, Brad. So when a publisher actually sends, when it publishes to the broker, it doesn't know, nor does it care who actually received it. That is controlled by the system administrator. And the system administrator can set security or not. So the system administrator can say, look, I only want these people to read this information from the broker. I'll only make this information available. I'll only make that information available. I'll make everything available. So that's up to the system administrator. But the publisher does not care. It's not the job of the publisher. So if you have an RTU, if you've got remote SCADA, some kind of a publisher, usually these things don't have much intelligence. They just publish, and the system administrator takes care of the security. The model is actually quite interesting there. Marcio, where's the best place to start with OPC UA unified namespace? Go ahead, take a look at OPC Expert, and you'll see it will actually connect to your OPC servers and enable you to actually take a look at that at the namespace. Can OPC, Marcio, can OPC Expert be a SparkplugB primary application? Absolutely. It can be a SparkplugB MQTT, SparkplugB subscriber, publisher, and even broker. Now, Marcia is also saying very specifically, can OPC Expert add attributes? And yes, of course. In fact, it adds quality, so you have that information directly in your SparkplugB. So if you're publishing from OPC, you can actually get that in SparkplugB. Quite interesting, actually. Ernest, I already expanded the item ID. Is it possible to transform the OPC data before sending it to MQTT broker? Yes, absolutely. So Ernest, I think what you're talking about is very specifically, you're talking about can, for example, you do calculation, to which the answer is absolutely, you can do a calculation and then send it out to MQTT. That's for sure. Nelson, why SparkplugB and not just OPC UA PubSub transport format? Because in this case, Nelson, I was showing very specifically OPC and MQTT. So I didn't show the specific OPC UA PubSub, which actually typically would use MQTT. Just what I chose to use. Tabello. Tabello, does standard MQTT support broker-to-broker communication? Of course, there's nothing special here. This is just in terms of how people choose to use MQTT, how to program it, and how to write their products. But of course, a broker, if you have a broker, it does not mean it has broker-to-broker. If you have a broker, it does not mean it has a publisher. It does not mean it has a subscriber. In this case, OPC Expert's broker has a publisher and a subscriber built in. So we actually built this in extra. And of course, it all complies with the specifications. Tabello, it does not mean that you source broker, just spraying uses a source. OPC Expert. I'll get back to this question. Let me get back to that question. But Tabello, I think the answer to what you're looking for, the question is, if not, does this mean that your source broker is just being used as a source and OPC Expert uses MQTT transmitter publisher? Yes, absolutely. So Tabello, okay, I see where you're going here. It all complies with MQTT. So once it gets into OPC, into OPC Expert, you can publish it, you can subscribe. Even the broker itself will publish or subscribe to another broker. And that's how it does the store and forward. Paul, is it compatible with other data brokers? Yeah, any data broker, if it uses MQTT, this thing is absolutely compatible. It's compatible with anything that does MQTT. Tom, are you able to rename the node ID, group ID, before publishing? Yes, you can actually do some renaming. Tom, you can actually do some renaming if that's what you need. There's some defaults, but you can, of course, rename it and put it somewhere else. Is it secure to send data MQTT broker to MQTT broker? Interesting question. Is it secure? Look, guys, whenever you're talking about, is something actually secure? That's a loaded question. To what level of security? Does it have security options? Yes, absolutely. And MQTT, luckily, has built-in security. So yeah, OPC Expert, for example, for broker to broker, it uses, you can use certificates, you can use, you can encrypt your communication. So very specifically to what level, I guess that's up to you. Maybe I'll take that question more offline, but yes, there's built-in security. Okan, can you land the data from broker 2 to OPC server on PC2? Yeah, absolutely. So you can send, Okan, you can get data from a broker to an OPC server. Good question, because it's kind of like server to server communication. In this case, it's broker to server. So OPC Expert subscribes to the broker, grabs that data, and using its OPC client, it sends data to an OPC server. So it can go from a broker to an OPC server. I think that's your question. Brad. My point in this last question is that I'm attempting to monitor multiple remote locations. In this case, pump houses, yeah, and tanks or potable water, right. And I need to be assured that you will not lose alarms from any of the remote pump houses and tank locations. Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I think I think this is referring to the question you asked a little bit earlier about how can you be assured. And yes, there's quality. I think you're talking about quality of service. So there's quality of service already built into MQTT, and that also occurs with server-to-server communication. That is one of the options, Brad. There's also, of course, security, if that's what you meant. But yes, absolutely, all those options are in there. Karthik, over the internet, yes, absolutely, you can do this over the internet. Okay, Okan. Oh, thank you very much, Okan. Congratulations for the splendid webinar, concise and very informative. Thank you very much for that. Paul, great session as usual. Thank you. Yeah, thanks very much, Paul. Okay, Dimitrios, how can I send data from OPC to Microsoft SQL? That is actually a different webinar, and we've got videos on that as well. I'll send you a video on that, and of course you can get MQTT to SQL as well. Oh, interesting, Matthias. Without SparkplugB, no quality information is transported by MQTT, correct? Okay, so Matthias, you're asking about why SparkplugB. Without SparkplugB, there's no guarantee of what information you send. SparkplugB is what guarantees that information. Without it, it's not that you don't have it, it's just that it's not guaranteed. Okay, let me just take on two last questions, and then we'll end the webinar, and I will reply to the rest of the questions. I'll reply to you by email. So guys, those of you that ask questions that I just didn't get to, please go ahead and ask them, and I will send you an email and reply because we're running out of time here. So two more questions. As I said, Jan, is it possible to publish to an active MQ broker? Not sure what you mean by active MQ. That might be an application, but if it is an MQTT broker, so active MQ, probably active message queue. If it's MQTT, yes, for sure, you can publish to it. Absolutely sure. Richard, one last question here. Do you recommend to all the courses one after? Oh, Richard, slightly different question. Do you recommend to do all the courses one after the other, or do you think it's better to wait between courses? Really, you should, in my opinion, just take the courses one right after the other. Richard, we have an accelerated class, and you can get all 4 courses done in just 1 week. It actually takes you far less time and interrupt. There's less. You get less interruption. It's faster. Okay. One last question here, Jan. Will OPC Expert publish everything at the same time, or only change values? This is actually very important, and this is a very, very important question for MQTT. So MQTT is by exception. So as far as the publishing goes, OPC Expert will send only what changed. However, it's very, very possible for the subscriber to ask the broker, to ask the publisher, to ask for another birth certificate, in which case you will actually get sent everything, which is quite important actually to be able to request that. So that's one of the features that are available in MQTT. And of course, it is supported by OPC Expert, these birth certificates, something that was added in SparkplugB. So really very important, Jan. And yes, that's supported by OPC Expert and of course by MQTT. All right, folks. So there I see some more questions. Hokan, Matthias, Georgios, Ramesh. So I see quite a few questions still. Guys, I will answer your questions. I will reply to them by email. So just remember, I will send them. Again, we will send you another email. You should get that tomorrow with the webinar recording. A link to download OPC Expert and actually try this out. A video showing you how to do MQTT. So the stuff I've done here today, you'll be able to see how to do that, and an invitation to the next webinar talking about OPC, very specifically to Excel. You can, and you'll be able to sign up for it immediately. Again, folks, thanks very much for coming to the webinar. We've gone a little bit over time. I apologize for that, but hopefully the questions were worth it. All right. Once again, everyone, thank you very much for coming. Any last questions, please go ahead and ask them. I will reply to them by email, and we will get you guys on your way. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye.